Why, hello guys, welcome back to another episode of Everyday EDC. My name is Tyler, and today we have a white class review for you of the CJRB Tigris. Alright guys, so the CJRB Tigris. This thing is kind of that fun, just oversized, just everything that a man wants in a knife but really doesn't need. That's this guy right here. So we have some white G10 with some overlays with some black G10 underneath. If you can see here, we got this black G10. We got some nice cutouts and some, well, that looks like dirt from my hand from carrying it. We have this sideways milling in the black, and then this like checker pattern going up through the white. We have a T6 and a T6 body screw right there, with a captive pivot and a pivot collar made of aluminum right here. That is red aluminum, and we have the same on the other side. We have a deep carry pocket clip, which is not ambidextrous, that goes right here, and it definitely is large with the rest of the knife, right? Some more T6 and a T8 pivot. We have a pretty cool aluminum backspacer going on right there. And I say cool, and then you kind of get to this. And it's almost like we forgot what we were doing. Like, I don't know what this is all about here. I don't know why this had to protrude more. I'm not sure if that's meant to be a glass breaker, because it's really not pointed like one. It just kind of is something. It's a thing. That's a thing for sure. But we have some chamfering going around the G10 around the edges. Some cutouts right there, like I said. And let's get to the blade. So this monstrous cleaver-shaped blade is pretty cool. We got some more milling. I would call these just like little milling pockets right here, similar to the design in the G10. We have it actually milled into the blade. I'm sure that that's more or less for aesthetics, but as you put it here, you can feel them. I'm not going to say that they provide much traction other than maybe a slight discomfort, but it's alright. This is a stonewash style blade, CJRB on one side, a serial number, and then the blade steel AR RPM 9 on the other. The AR RPM 9 is pretty cool that they would include this in there, basically the powder form of 9CR13. We have a swedge that goes here, and then a knockdown right there. It's almost like a cleaver mixed with, I would say, maybe a sheep's foot style or so. Let's see if we can get into the inside guts. Is there anything worth noting in here? Yeah, there's some milling on this side. You can see little milling holes, but not much. I mean, these are stainless steel liners. This is a liner lock, so it is going to be right-hand tip up only. But the action is running on bearings, and it is oh so good. The lockup coming in here dead center, or not the lockup, but the centering. The back and forth non-existent, the up and down non-existent. We do have the plunge grind that almost works perfectly, because it kind of comes out to a smile right here into the sharpening choil-ish thing. Yeah, I mean, it's almost done well. Almost perfect. I would have liked this to see a little bit higher up, but that's all right. A very large flipper tab for a very large, beefy knife. Ergonomically, you know, your resting ergonomics actually feel really good, and I can tell you, this blade stock is thinner than one would expect, because I went and I was cutting up some carpet with it. It was weird. I was like, you know what, let's grab this, let's try to cut some carpet with it. It actually cuts fantastically. So I'm excited to get into the specs. We'll kind of see where this is at. Then I'll go into my likes, my dislikes, whether or not it's worth it. The price point being around 80 bucks plus or minus. There you go, full disclosure there. All right, let's get you guys some specs. Ooh. All right, so the overall weight's coming in at a 6.3 ounces. So this is not a small boy by any means. It's actually pretty damn large, and you can see it takes up most of my camera screen here. Overall length is coming in right at about 8.5 inches, plus or minus, maybe about 8.25, give or take. The blade length's coming in at about 3, I would call it 3.5, maybe 3 3/4, but the cutting edge is coming in just shy of 3.5. check your blade stock thickness. All right, she's thick. So that's what I was talking about. This is a relatively thin blade stock coming in at 125 thousandths. For a blade this large, I guess I would have expected just kind of like a meat cleaver that you can like sling around and just beat the crap out of. But instead, it decided to come down to 16 thousandths behind the freaking edge. Now, if that isn't like one of the sliciest cleaver-shaped blades that you've ever seen, show me. Because this, while is kind of like novelty-ish, is so damn slicey and functional. It, when I was just cutting up the carpet, glided, something like that, straight freaking through. Now, the unfortunate part here is the carry factor is going to suck. This thing needs to be turned down before I measure anything. So the overall thickness is coming in at a 0.6 inches, which is cool. Let me double check on that. That's really thick. Yeah, which is cool because it's going to provide a lot more comfort in hand. But the overall height at its highest points coming in at just about 1.87 inches, which is much taller than any Spyderco that I've come across. And yeah. So again, these edges are nicely chamfered. They're not contoured, but because of this double layered G10, it adds to a thick, freaking meaty back of the spine, or rather back of the handle. So while this is narrow, it fills out the hand really, really well. Like, this feels good. I usually don't like this style handle where it kind of forces you here, but it does feel really good, guys. This is not just a novelty. This is something that you're going to want to use. And having used it, so the working ergonomics are equally awesome, if not better than the resting. So here is your feldspar and your mini feldspar. Your CJRB sandwich, if you will. The regular size feldspar is coming in at, you know, maybe half of an inch shorter, and the mini feldspar is coming in at much shorter. Here is your Civivi Praxis and your Civivi Elementum. Obviously much shorter than the Elementum, about kind of similar to the Praxis, guys. Praxis doesn't like to show up on here, that's alright, because of that black freaking blade, but and I almost considered comparing the two, and then I thought against it because they're not close enough to compare. But I mean, they're you know, they're kind of the same ballpark as far as style and what you might like. Here's your Rat Model 1 and your Rat Model 2. So the Rat Model 2 and Rat Model 1. This is obviously really close to the Rat Model 1 in size, and you know, the Rat Model 2, if it's really close to the Rat Model 1, it's going to be smaller than the Rat Model 2. But it is very, very comparable in length and thickness, like heft, as the Rat Model 1. So here is your Spyderco Shaman and your Spyderco Paramilitary 3, which apparently does not want to sit up for the camera. She's a dirty girl. All right, so this is very close in size to your Shaman, actually a little bit longer, and obviously nowhere near your Para 2 or Para 3. I got one more comparison that isn't really for a comparison more than a talking point, and this is something that has been really fun. Haven't used it too much. It's just kind of like a novelty piece for me that I haven't reviewed, and I'll probably get rid of once I review, but it's just funny and cool, in my opinion. And this is the Artisan Cutlery Ravine. Now, I'm looking at the similarities of these structures, and that's kind of why I was like, maybe I should show it. You know, they are very, very similar looking. If you were to throw a finger choil in there, instead of letting this face go up, bring this face down, I mean, you could almost see it as like a duplicate model without all this going on here. So I figured I'd show it. This is coming in at about 160 bucks when I got it. I don't even know if they're available anymore. And people hate on it. Like, the Knife Nuts podcast were like, that is stupid. You know, some people are like, look at the swastika. And I think that's all ridiculous. If you guys look at this and see a swastika, then you need to get yourself checked out. Because this doesn't look like a swastika to me. And I think if you see a swastika first and foremost, you know, maybe you're the one with the issue. Just saying. Moving on. All right. So, this is the CJRB Tigris. All right, guys. So, first, let's recap this real quick. We got a swedge going on down this AR RPM 9, giant sheep's foot style cleaverish blade. We have these nice little cutouts right here, kind of like they're little milling patterns that kind of simulate some jimping, but you know, it's more just uncomfortable if you rock it up and down than it is grippy. But they kind of match these milling patterns in the back of the G10, which is cool. This is multi-layer G10, or 2 pieces rather, that I think are adhered together. I haven't taken this apart, but I would assume they're adhered together. But we got a white piece overlaying a dark black piece. We have some milling pattern going in the black piece underneath like this, and a checkered pattern going here. We have a pivot cowler with a captive pivot, aluminum on the pivot cowler, aluminum matching on the backspacer. We got some nice jimping that's actually really soft. It's rounded off real nice, but then you have this protruding point back here that I still haven't figured out what it's supposed to do. Now, if you were to make that into like a bottle opener or something, cool, at least as a function. This just kind of like, why is it hanging off the backside? I still don't get it. I'm not sure. But somebody inform me if you actually know. So we have a deep carry, massive pocket clip that, you know what, it kind of fits the design as goofy as it looks, right? Some T6 screws and a T8 pivot going on up here. This is a liner lock, locking up pretty good, and we do have a fat, and I forgot to mention this in the beginning, a fat freaking stop pin for a fat freaking blade right here. This is riding on bearings, and there is some milling in these thick steel liners, and it's relatively heavy. This is a novelty knife, but it does have a very narrow blade profile, or blade stock, coming down to a very narrow behind the edge for such a massive knife that when I used this, and like I said, I was just cutting up carpet and stuff, but holy smokes, guys, this glid through the carpet so nicely. It was so pleasant to use. I was very pleasantly surprised. It was one of those where you're like, aha, when you're using it. You're like, yeah. Very, very cool. So what do I like about it? I really like the action for such a fat blade. I mean, it's cool. I really like the blade itself and AR RPM 9. I mean, that's cool. You give us something different. It's not that we like or dislike the steel. Let's be honest. If you were steel snobs and you really cared about performance, you would be perfectly happy with most D2 or 14C28N, which I think we all are happy with 14C28N, and we just don't see it enough. But very narrow blade stock, very narrow behind the edge. The ergonomics of this, both resting and working, are very, very good. And as I said, the action, it's just a very cool looking novelty knife. What don't I like? So I usually don't like this position right here. There is a little bit of sharpness going on kind of around these edges. Nothing too obnoxious, but everything is, while it's knocked down, is kind of sharp. You don't feel it in hand as much, but if you're bearing down, you kind of do feel it just a little bit. And I can feel this pocket or this backspacer sticking out, and mainly that part right there. You can definitely feel that. I don't know if that's a hot spot, but it's definitely a little bit hotter than some other thing, right? The pocket clip being massive, I do feel it, but this knife is so massive and thick that it's not a hot spot. This is the only hot spot I can tell. What don't I like? This backspacer is cool, and then you do this. I'm not really sure. I guess you were trying to give us a lanyard thing. You know, maybe recess the backspacer, put a post or something in there, right? Do like it. That would be cool. You didn't have to do this goofy looking, like, half-ass. You didn't even make it into a window breaker or a bottle opener or something. It's just sticking off the end of there. That's annoying to me. I really don't like that. What else don't I like? Guys, I kind of like it all. It's just this massively overbuilt beefcake of a knife that is not supposed to be petite in any way, but still manages to get that slicing power right behind that blade. You know, the only thing I really don't like is this backspacer. Everything else is great. Even the price coming in at like 70 to 80 bucks. Are we really that mad about that for what you're getting with the AR RPM 9? This is competing with any Civivi, let's be honest. Let's see here. This is an older Civivi, but this is your Civivi Praxis. Here's your action on the CJRB. Here's your action on the Praxis. I mean, the action's virtually the same. I would be willing to bet, I think this is a flat grind on the Praxis, if I remember right. I'd be willing to bet this behind the edge on the Praxis is just about the same. DLC might throw it off. Yep. Praxis is right at the exact same, so it's going to be just as slicey. It's a very functional blade. It's very comfortable in hand. So this is competing with your Civivis. Yes, this is an older Civivi model, but that doesn't matter. For that price, I'm okay with it because there's so many intricacies. You get the aluminum, you get the G10, the AR RPM 9. So I'm done. I'm not mad about anything. I think the backspacer kind of is goofy. That's all I got for you guys for 70 to 80 bucks. I can definitely recommend this if this is the type of knife that you're into, that bigger, overbuilt, kind of goofy looking shit. That's this one. And it's super fun and super enjoyable to use. My name's Tyler. This has been Everyday EDC. You guys stay sharp, stay safe, and sincerely, have a great freaking day, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. This is my Patreon. This is my Instagram, everydayedc_77. I'm going to do a special shout out to all the Patreons: John K, Sammy, Eggs and Ham, Jason M, Dogtooth, Kaiba, Mickey, Wolf, and Captain Steve. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great friggin' day.